Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord. Trust in him, and he will act. Psalm 37, 4 and 5.
All right, welcome back to The Pilgrim's Way. It's good to be here with you guys. This morning we're going to be discussing committing our time, our way, as Andy just read, committing our way to the Lord. And specifically for us right now, we're in the middle of our Holy Week, which we've been planning for several months now, where each evening we're asking the church to gather, to come and worship the Lord and to focus on one particular part, or aspect of the story of Christ leading up to the crucifixion. So that's kind of what we're discussing, guys. Why is this such an important thing for us to be thinking about?
We just have such busy lives in the 21st century, and that's everybody's excuse for everything all the time. Is just, I'm just so busy. Not to throw anybody under the bus here, but I recall going to a school board meeting a while ago. That is good podcasting right there. Said bunches, words, minis. And what they were discussing was going to a 4-day school week and having Mondays off. And there were some people that said, I just have so much going on. It'd be great to have an extra day. I didn't say anything in the meeting because I didn't want to step on anybody's toes. But in the back of my mind, I was just screaming, you do not need more time. You need to do less stuff. That is the solution to your problem. And I get it. Life is busy. For those of us that work full time, for those of us that have kids at home, for those of us that have social lives, and I'm not saying that's not important. All of those things are, of course, but we live in a day and age where the only way you're going to have time is if you make time. So you have to decide what's important here. And if you decide, whether consciously or unconsciously, that Jesus is not important, that will be reflected in the way that you spend your time.
So I'd go a little. I'd add on to that and saying, we have seen over our lifetimes a change in the commodity of time into where, growing up, we were still my parents' generation was still much more the most precious thing that they could offer was money, and then but serving and volunteering was kind of a little bit more natural. It was easier for them to do. We have switched to where people would rather give money to support a ministry than to volunteer their time to carry out a ministry. And that has had some pretty big implications for the church in the 21st century.
Yep.
But it also just says we as pastors have to think differently about time. When we are asking our people to volunteer, we are shepherding them towards things that are meaningful and truly matter, and away from things that could be a distraction. So when we think about our holy calendar and in our year of worshiping the Lord, there are some things that we say, this is of particular importance. We really need to be present for these things. And I think what we're actually then modeling is we're saying to the church, this is your heart, your affection should be where your time is, where we would once have said your affection should be where your money is. We're seeing kind of now a new emphasis on where your time goes is really important.
That's exactly right. I think the issue is that we don't want to say no to ourselves or to our children. We want to do everything that we are interested in. And when anyone requests us to spend time doing something else, it immediately goes into this unconscious filter of how important is that? Because I'm going to show up. I'm not going to waste my life. And I mean, I've said those words, that movie was a waste of life. It was a waste of time to give to watching that, or to experiencing that, or to going to a Recorder concert or something like that. I mean, it's those kinds of things. You're just there's so many other things that I could be doing that would be more valuable than this. And I think that oftentimes when we as a church put forth an opportunity to connect with God in a meaningful way, people do not filter that into a high priority. It's just not something that matters to them. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, I think we as a church have been trying to entertain people and doing a bad job of it.
Mm.
And thus, they're like, yeah, I'm not going to go to that. That won't be fun. That won't be entertaining. That will be mind numbing. And so they just, no, I'm out, and I'm not going to do that. I think that's part of it. I think another part of it is that relationship with God, connecting with God, is not something that we really value that much. We almost treat God like the elderly person in the nursing home that we're related to, that we know that we need to visit them. We know that we need to spend some time with them. But there's just a lot of other things that are more fun, and I'm going to go do that. And then every once in a while, I'll make an appearance. And that's not how relationship with God is cultivated. God is the source of all joy and pleasure. And until you see that, you will not prioritize relationship with God. I think we as a church have to do a better job of not providing a service, but enabling people to better connect with God, to enjoy God, to delight themselves in God. I like the verse you read, Andy. Delight yourself in the Lord. He's commanding us to delight ourselves in God, to just enthrall ourselves with God, to rejoice in the Lord always, as Paul says in Philippians 4. Well, how do I do that? How do I cultivate that kind of enjoyment of God? Well, one of the ways that you can do that is by intentionally saying, I'm going to participate in this activity, in this series of events, and in this particular slowdown of a week, in order to give my time and my presence to the Lord, to the worship of the Lord. And in order to do that, I have to deny other things. I can't just keep adding. I have to choose. And I think that's where the rubber really meets the road is, will you choose Christ over games? Will you choose Christ over a social engagement? Will you choose Christ over work? Will you choose Christ over an evening watching television? Will you choose Christ over you fill in the blank? What is it that your schedule is so full of that you do not think that you have the capacity or the time to be here for something like this?
Yeah. So, getting really practical, like how would someone think about this? Like, let's say they've got, a couple of kids in high school, a couple of kids in middle school, and they're running all over the place. Both parents are taking different kids here and there, making sure that they're all in. And then, on the weekends, it's finally a moment to just relax for a second. Maybe, that's not even guaranteed anymore with like traveling sports and stuff like that. How would you counsel someone who's so busy with all of these things that aren't necessarily bad? They're just extremely draining.
I think it's right to recognize that those things by themselves aren't bad. It's wonderful to be able to encourage your kids in their pursuits and to participate in those activities. That's how they learn and grow in the world, and there's all sorts of value in that. But to do that at the expense of modeling Christ to your family and making sure that you have an opportunity to plug into the creator of the universe, which, by the way, is the purpose for which we were made. Mm-hmm. Our purpose is to be in a special relationship with God and to reflect his character and glory throughout all creation. You can't be in a relationship if you don't spend time with that person that you're supposedly in a relationship with. So to pursue those things at that expense is where the problem comes. And I think the only thing you have to do is just decide what's really important. And at least just be honest. If you've decided that, God's not important, church is not important, Jesus is not important, fellowship with other believers is not important, okay, I wish that you wouldn't decide that. I can't decide it for you. But at least just be honest about that, so that way you can evaluate, how's that working out for you? Because if you pretend that you have this one foot in the camp of Christianity, I'm a Christian on the basis of, I show up at church once every 6 weeks whenever we don't have a travel ball game scheduled on a weekend. Or I'm a Christian because, I filled out that card that one time, but, I don't really do anything at church except show up and expect other people to pour into me. I don't want to say that's like lazy, and I'm certainly not trying to look down on anybody for it, but you're either all in or you're not. And I don't want to lay it out so hard for people, but just what's important to you? And if God's not important, then why? Why is God not important enough to decide, I want to spend a few extra nights on this one occasion that we have going to church and learning more about the story of Jesus up to his crucifixion, or, being a consistent participant in church, not just by my attendance, but by my participation. If you aren't doing those things, examine your heart, and you need to decide, why is that not important? And I think finding the answer to that is going to reveal a significant portion of what you need to do next.
I think in answering the question of how do I, maybe we probably all would agree, like, I need to slow down. I want to slow down. I just don't know how to do it. I think you have to examine, why do you feel like you need to do everything that you've got doing? So it might begin by as simply as writing down all of the things that you're committed to, not just you, but your spouse, your kids. What are all the things that we're committed to? Are these things good? If there's anything that's not good, that's an easy cut. If it's not good, if it's not wholesome, cut it. But most of the things are probably decent things to be involved in. So then you ask the question, does this help our family connect with God and honor God, or does it hinder us from connecting and honoring God? If it's hindering, then it's something that you can cut. Then I think you evaluate goals. What is the reason we're doing this? We're giving a lot of time to this activity. Well, because my kid wants to. I never got to do this sport, or I never got to have this experience, and so my kid really wants to, and I want to make sure they have what I didn't have. I don't think that's a good goal. And I don't think that doing things just because your kids want to is a healthy way to parent in general. I think that we all want to do things that our kids want to do. We want our kids to foster interests. But sometimes children need to simply learn you're not going to get to do everything you want to do in life. That's just not how the world works. Sometimes it's okay to say, you know what, we're not going to participate in sports this spring or this winter or this fall or whatever, because we've really neglected family. We haven't been spending, we've never been home as a family. I can't remember the last time we shared a meal around the table as a family, and so we're taking a break from sports this season. And you say, well, my kid really wants to do this. Yes, but if you got 4 kids or 3 kids or 2 kids and they're all in different things and you're going in different ways, and it's chaos. And so you have to intentionally plan. It might be saying, okay, you can choose one sport, or you can choose, one sport at a time, up to 2 or 3 sports total, or something like that. You have to create parameters and rules that are based on biblical, healthy goals for the family. Don't reduce everything to the individual wish of any member of the family. Help them understand that you are part of a collective group. You're a part of a body, and everybody works together. And so you might have to say, I would really like to do this, but I'm not going to do it. Like for me, I would love to go home every evening and drink a cup of tea and read a good book. That's what I like to do, or to go take a walk or something like that. I don't really have a desire to go hunting or fishing. I don't really have a desire to
touch grass,
to be out, on a bleacher seat every night of the week, But sometimes, or a lot of times, we have to say, you know what I want is second to what somebody in my family needs. Your children need to learn to do that too. A lot of times the parents are the only ones that do that. Children need to learn to say, I can sacrifice this in order to be a blessing to my family. So I think it's a matter of deciding on priorities, deciding on, what's the goal here? What's the reason for this activity? And putting our children through a rigorous sports regimen so they can be a professional athlete, I think, is an exercise in futility. Most all kids are not going to get there.
I think it's like 0.2% or something like that.
Yeah, it's
something
just
ridiculous.
And then it's just not worth it. It's not worth it. What matters more is that your family is healthy, and that your family loves Jesus. So
I appreciate that you used the word sacrifice there. We would have to sacrifice something in order to do something else. In the industry that I work in, we call that opportunity cost. That, if you invest something in this area, then that means you are giving up the opportunity to invest that same thing in another area. And there's nothing wrong with saying that, this may end up being a sacrifice. And sacrifice is hard. Your kid might really love being a part of their traveling baseball team. But if that traveling baseball team is all of a sudden not a good choice for either your child or for your family, then it is a sacrifice to give that up. Nobody's saying that that's an easy thing to do, or that it's fun, or that all other things being equal, you would have done that anyway. You probably wouldn't have. But unfortunately, all things are not equal. And there are some times where hard decisions have to be made, but just because they're hard doesn't mean that they're not worth it.
Yeah, I really appreciated what you were saying earlier, Phil, and that ties into that last bit there from you, Andy. That these things that we're sacrificing for are worth it. Like it's not that we're removing sports or whatever it is just so we can come Sunday morning and then go back and like we're committing our way, our whole life to the Lord, and that. Like that's real. Like that's going to be meaningful, and it's going to produce a better fruit down the road. Like your kids are gonna still be with you. Like they're going to like you because you're not all separate. On the weekends or during the week, you're going to know your family whenever you sacrifice these things. I like that you said earlier, Phil, sacrificing these things even just for family time. Like because I was thinking like cutting out some stuff in your schedule so that you can make sure you're active and involved in the fellowship of the saints. But that's such a big point too. Like, when's the last time you had dinner as a family? Mm-hmm. Like, if you're in 4 different sports, then probably not for a while. It's been a minute. Mm-hmm. What about you, Doug? What are some things that you would suggest or counsel?
Well, I was just thinking too. So we were mostly emphasizing kind of the vertical importance that we want family or if you're singles to be here, so that you can spend time worshiping God, delighting in God. But there's also a horizontal aspect to this, like because you of that vertical desire to love and worship God and to enjoy Him, He is going to change your heart to where you are also going to love the people. That and maybe that's one of the things that we need to kind of figure out as a church. Is like if children are saying like, I don't like it, I don't want to go there, I don't know anybody, I don't have anybody to talk to. Well, I think that may be more of a thing about our community. Like how do we care for one another? How do we involve our kids rather than segregate them out by, age grade, study times to say like, are you involved with other people in the church? Are there 20 people that every week when you walk in the doors, you are excited to be there and love you? One of the big things that helped us as a family practically is like, so when we were still learning French when we went to the field and we were, it was hard to go to church because it was going to be 20 or 40 conversations where you would fail at some point. You just didn't have enough language and you'd have to switch to English, and maybe they spoke English. But for our kids too, they were there and they would have to fail. And they, in having to go and knowing that this was such a high priority every week, they began to love the people, and there were certain people who would come up and have a conversation with them every time. And it would be somebody who was learning English and they would struggle, but like there was a genuine Christian affection for brothers and sisters. And so in talking about all this, I'm thinking, I also really desire that. I enjoy being here because of some of the people that I'm going to get to see. And I get to see these people several times a week. And that has helped me to kind of set guide rails on priorities. Like I'm not going to do a bunch of nightly activities that take away from time that are going to affect home group or serving together or coming to pray with one another because of the affections for others.
Yeah, that's really good. I was actually thinking about that whenever Andy was talking earlier about like sacrificing maybe some of your social times or opportunities like outside of the church. Well, you could just replace them with opportunities inside the church. Like there's so many ways that you can get involved. Like if you are desiring community, and so you're pursuing that somewhere else, and that's taking away from your schedule, away from your family. You can just bring your family to a home group and experience community that way. So yeah, Doug, I think it's really important to think about the horizontal aspect as well.
I think it's important in this conversation. We're thinking about Holy Week, and that's kind of a unique moment. It's a 1 week out of the year that we're asking you to consider giving this week to the Lord. But I think more normative is the week in, week out rhythm of life. And I think many times, I know I was guilty of this for a long, long time, of not giving adequate thought to the weekly rhythm of our family. Other than going to church, and in large part, that's probably because it's my job. We're going to be there. But there was also a sense in which this is more important for us than anything else. So we're not going to do, this or that sport because they only do stuff on Sundays. So that's just not going to be an option for us. We're not doing that. And there was initial disappointment for my kids at times. But in the long run, now that most of them are grown, they are thankful that we had that rhythm in place, because now they prioritize being with God's people on Sunday. And that sport would have come and gone, and it wouldn't have changed their life. But the Lord's people changed their life. And so I think that if you don't, it's like a budget. Like if you don't budget your money is spent, and you spend more than you take in most of the time. And you spend it on stuff that you have no idea where it went. You don't know, you have nothing to show for what you spent. But if you budget your money, you oftentimes end up with money at the end of the month that you can save or use in different ways, because you're having the discipline of the guardrails there to kind of help you make decisions in a moment. But most of us often live an unbudgeted life in the sense of our time, and we just go without thought of, is this important or urgent? Is this good or is this best? And we're just doing what's immediately in front of us instead of saying strategically no. And the reason I'm saying no is not because that's not good. It's because I want to accomplish something better. I want to experience something better. And if I do this, I can't do that. And we don't often think about the better until it's too late. Yeah. And I think that having rhythms in place teach you, but they also teach your family to value the Lord, to value family, to value quiet, silence, and solitude, to value a slower pace of life, to value rest. And all of that is pushing back against the culture. The culture is consumer-driven, frenetic, hurried pace of life as much as possible, because they're living as if tomorrow is it. And we know that we have forever. Mm-hmm. And what matters is knowing God and delighting ourselves in God. And I think we need to have some hard, no, not hard, that's not the right word. We need to have some long, careful times of thinking and conversation with our families and friends. What can we do better to budget our time, to prioritize relationship with God? What's going to help me cultivate and experience relationship with God? What's going to help my family cultivate and experience relationship with God? What's going to help me cultivate and experience relationship with my family and my church family? So that's what I would say. These things matter, but if you don't act preemptively, you're always going to be reacting, and it's not going to be great.
You introduced a really interesting and I think important concept there that your kids realized looking back on that decision that you made to prioritize and isolate Sunday mornings for that specific purpose, that at the time they probably didn't really appreciate it very much. But with the benefit of hindsight, they can see the value there. So let's just say that you're listening to this conversation and for some reason you're super inspired. Yes, I'm gonna give this part of my week to God. And a couple weeks go by and you're just I don't really feel any different, and this wasn't as good as I wanted it to be, and I'm really thinking about that other thing that I gave up because I really liked it so much. You're not going to see that kind of result over that amount of time. It takes a very long degree of experience for that to pay off. And it will. I'm 100% convinced of that God will reward that decision if it's made for the right purposes and with the right steps in mind. So I would encourage somebody listening here, just choose one thing. Like, maybe give up your Netflix subscription. I know that's probably like a big thing for a lot of people because we get a lot of mileage out of that these days. But give up your Netflix subscription and just say, you know what, I'm going to commit to this for however long. That, instead of watching my show every single night, I'm going to fellowship with other believers, or I'm going to invite somebody over to my home, or I'm going to spend more time in the Word with my family, and re-budget your time that you would have otherwise spent doing this mindless task, and give it long enough so that the Lord can work through that activity in your life and the lives of your family, and just see what happens. And whatever happens, I'm sure it's going to be great. I know it will.
That's good. Well, that's probably a good place to wrap up, land this episode. Thank you, as always, for tuning in, for listening. We hope that this episode was helpful to you. We would encourage you, as always, to commit your way to the Lord, to make plans, to devote your schedule, your time to Him, and we are confident that you will see a great benefit from that. So again, thank you for listening, and until next week, enjoy the journey.